Alright, so I didn't intend to do this one so quickly, but Warhammer 3 is coming out faster than even I expected. To put this in perspective, I am recording this on February 2nd. We have seen teasers drop over the last few days, implying very directly Kislev, Khorne, Nurgle, Slaanesh, and Tzeentch, and less directly Chaos Dwarfs and Ogre Kingdoms, making it look like my guess in the prior Total War Warhammer 3 video about core factions was actually correct. And we are going to get Kislev, Ogre Kingdoms, Chaos Dwarfs, Chaos Demons, and not mono-god Chaos armies, as was becoming the popular theory for a little bit there. And this particular video, which I intended to do later on, is to speculate about the legendary lords that each race is going to get, as we got a little bit more and more teasers of Warhammer 3. But the time is of the essence, and the fire has now been lit beneath my ass. So, given that we can assume it's Kislev, Ogres, Chaos Dwarfs, and Demons, I want to talk about the core legendary lords that we get from the very beginning at launch for free. Not the free LC or DLC legendary lords. We can talk about those boys once we get a little more of a glimpse. Once we actually know who the core legendary lords are, we'll talk about that. And while we've got all this going on, I did pick a Chaos Warrior army that specifically has Sartorial, because he's a Keeper of Secrets. Not a Keeper of Secrets, a Changer of Fates. Why is this Slaanesh Greater Demon named the Keeper of Secrets? I never got that. And also a Chaos Dwarf manned Hell Cannon, because hey, Chaos Demons and Chaos Dwarfs. Either which way, yeah, we are going against the Lizardmen, as you can see this big fucking beefy lizard boy here in the distance. Alright, so, I think for the Legendary Lord core candidates, we have some idea of what are the main bases that they core Legendary Lords are chosen off of. They have to be, generally speaking, pretty iconic ones. The Skaven, I think, were an exception. Neither Skrulk nor Queek were as iconic as Thanquol or Ikit, but they had their reasons to not choose Ikit and Thanquol. I believe that the Legendary Lords are more than likely going to be representative of a broader culture, but not the hyper-specific culture. Which is why I think Ikit Claw got left out as a Skaven Legendary Lord, is because he specifically represented Clan Scryer, which was an obvious DLC candidate for their unique units and potential for unique gameplay mechanics. Whereas while Skrulk represented the Clan Pestilence subculture, there was only a few plague-based units for the Skaven, and there didn't look to be unique mechanics beyond just releasing plagues, which all the Skaven clans do. So, I think it's going to be representative of a broader culture. More than likely, there are going to be one Caster Legendary Lord and one Beatstick Legendary Lord. Out of the 8 core races that we have gotten so far, only 3 of them have not followed this model, those being the Dwarfs, Vampire Counts, and Dark Elves. The Dwarfs have no Caster Legendary Lords, the Vampire Counts have nothing but Caster Legendary Lords, and for the Dark Elves, they were CA had their hands forced because the 2 most iconic Dark Elf Legendary Lords by far were both casters. But every other core race has had one Beatstick Legendary Lord, like Karl Franz, Grimgor, or Tyrion, and one Caster Legendary Lord, like Teclis, Mazdamundi, or Balthazar Gelt. And I expect this pattern to continue. Keeping that in mind, Kislev is probably the easiest one to figure out. And boy, my Skaven Master Assassin there is going to get fucked in a little bit. The Kislev are the easiest one to figure out because they've got just 2 easy candidates. In the 6th edition White Dwarf army list, and I believe the War Master army list, Kislev only had 2 named characters. Katarin Boka, and her father Boris Boka. Katarin is a caster, Boris is a beatstick. Both iconically represent major aspects of Kislevite culture that will likely be major focuses going forward for selling Kislev. Katarin represents ice magic, and Boris represents bears. The 2 most important parts of Kislev. It's cold and they've got fucking bears. Get used to that, folks. We're going to be seeing a lot of that. The Ogres, there is one obvious candidate. Greasus Goldtooth is guaranteed. He's iconic. He represents the Ogres at their peak. He is a strong, solid option for just a boring Ogre Lord with regular buffs. He'll probably just get buffs to making money off of trade and making money off of buildings or what have you. Which will be a little bit of an easier pick for people who are new to the game, in contrast to, let's say, Golg Maneater or Scrag the Slaughterer, either of which I think could be candidates for the other Legendary Lord. Golg Maneater, who I am deliberately censoring the name of for a reason, and I think Crave Assembly will do the very same, Bogue Maneater and Scrag the Slaughterer, both I think are decent candidates to represent specific parts of ogre culture. Particularly, I think they both have some solid options to be held back as DLC. But at the same time, they both can represent a big part of ogre culture to get you a quick glimpse in, with Scrag, of course, representing the ogre religion centered on food and cooking, and Gold representing the ogre cultural aspects of the wanderlust and serving as mercenaries. And boy, that wrapped up quicker than I expected. Thanks, guys. Chaos Dwarf sits a bit of a toss-up. Astragoth Ironhand is the most easy option to go with. He's a caster. He's probably the biggest leader that the Chaos Dwarfs have. Probably the closest thing to a United leader they have, though they technically don't have one. He's got an obviously cool visual design that brings you in and shows you how industrial the Chaos Dwarfs are. And he's not too hyper-focused on any one part of Chaos Dwarf culture. He's kind of generalist. The other one, it's a bit of a toss-up, I'd say. I'd say it's probably Jatan the Black. Chaos Dwarfs are very limited for their named characters. Jatan the Black and Rykarth the Unbreakable are both horribly generic. Gordu's Backstabber is probably going to be held back for a Hobgoblin free LC or DLC. And my own personal take is that Drazoth the Ashen will be the Lord Pack DLC that we see for Chaos Dwarfs, as he will probably represent the Legion of Asgore variant of the Chaos Dwarfs that was seen in the Tamarkon campaign. And they'll probably hold back units like, let's say, the Infernal Guard or the Kadai Fireborn as DLC with Drazoth the Ashen. So my own personal bet there, Astragoth I think is just about guaranteed, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is missing. The second Legendary Lord will probably be Jatan the Black as a beat stick. For Chaos Demons, that's a gigantic toss-up. Chaos Demons, there's kind of a divide between Legendary Lords who are a bit more boring but more iconic, like Scarbrand or Kairos Fateweaver, and Chaos Demon Legendary Lords who are a little more esoteric, but generally have more interesting visual designs or characters, like, let's say, the Blue Scribes or Skulltaker. And I think a big part of why people were clamoring for Mono God armies so much is just because, not because they think it'll actually work very well, because, I mean, it wouldn't, but because they want to see their favorite Legendary Lords included, and I gotta admit that I'm guilty of that. Because for Tzeentch, I don't want Kairos Fateweaver, he's just another fucking Chaos Chicken. We've already got Sarthoriel the Everwatcher, even though Sarthoriel wasn't a character in the lore. The Blue Scribes and the Changeling are both a lot more interesting, visually speaking. And for Khorne, it goes much the same. It could be Scarbrand, could be Skulltaker. I can't see it being Karanok, because Karanok's a dog, but, you know. Scarbrand, I think, is a pretty safe go with though, because Khorne is pretty well always the Chaos God who gets the most love. He's the one who is the most obviously fitting to war-based settings. He's just the god of killing shit and being angry all the time. And Scarbrand is a character who consists of nothing but killing shit and being angry all the time. Nakari is also a very solid prediction, I would say. I can't see Slaanesh getting a DLC or free LC because Slaanesh has always kind of been the least popular Chaos God. Or at the very least, the Chaos God who is the least favored by Games Workshop. Probably because Slaanesh is so distinctly sexual, and that's little harder to market than Khorne, Tzeentch, or Nurgle. So more than likely, I think Nakari will be one of the launch core Legendary Lords, not only because he is, or she, it's Slaanesh, so it could be he or she, not only because he or she is a Slaanesh Legendary Lord, and thus they can get that out of the way without having to sell them separately, but also because Nakari has been built up so much through Warhammer 2. Particularly in the Vortex campaign. So I'd say the safe bet for Khorne Legendary Lords are Scarbrand and Nakari. Though I would be really interested to see just about anyone else outside of Kugath Plaguefather and Kairos Fateweaver. Because again, the 4 Greater Demon named characters for the Chaos Demons are kind of boring. And yes, I do realize that there are people who are fans of Scarbrand or Kairos Fateweaver. I'm sorry, you're entitled to your opinion, by all means, your subjective taste. As am I. But as it is, I think that they're pretty boring, and we could get more interesting Chaos Demon candidates. Particularly considering how crazy and esoteric the Chaos Demons can be. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I am fascinated to see how wrong I am. I'll see you later, folks.